Hello and welcome to the Great International Education and Schools Fair. And I'm delighted to welcome you today to today's webinar, Focus on Schools in France and French Education. And we have a panel today consisting of Benjamin Hunter, Head of School, Hermitage International School of France, and Courtney Knight, Advancement and Engagement Director, International School of Paris. And then joining us via a video pre-recording will be Joanne Mitchell, Director of Loomis Education. So lovely to see you all today. So here am I in Kent and you are in different areas of Paris. So it's wonderful to see you, and some nice backdrops you've got there as well.
Thank you.
So just so that our audience know the sort of setting and a little bit about your school, can you just briefly give an overview of what your school's like, size, curriculum, ages, pupils, and the sort of location of the school with regards to Paris? So Benjamin, can we start with you, please?
Certainly. Thank you, Fiona. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here and to be with this panel. Very excited to highlight the advantages of doing your international education in France. So as you said, I'm the head of Hermitage International School of France. We are a K through 12 international school outside of Paris, about 15 kilometers outside of Paris in the western suburbs towards Versailles and Saint-Germain-en-Laye, which are really lovely suburbs. We are on a direct train line from Paris, so it's about 20 minutes door to door from Maison Lafitte, which is the town we're in, to the Champs-Élysées in the center of Paris. Our school is comprised of two different sections. We have 1,400 students total. And that's of course from K through 12, and we do the French Baccalaureate, which I'll dive into a little more depth in, as we go along, and the International Baccalaureate with the middle years program, the MYP, and the Diploma Programme, the DP, for the last 2 years of high school. We're also a day and boarding school. We have students who come here just for day school, and we also have students who stay with us on a 5-day basis from Monday to Friday in boarding, or on 7-day basis year-round, and then just go home for holidays.
Yeah.
So, yep.
No, I was going to say, fascinating. So you're covering all the spots there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Courtney, tell us a bit about your school and where you're located.
Thanks, Fiona. And again, as Ben said, thank you for having this conversation. I'm really happy to be here representing the International School of Paris. So we are a city center school. We're located in the 16th arrondissement of Paris, right next to the Eiffel Tower. We have 3 campuses for our youngest learners. That's 3 years old to 5th grade, for our middle school, which is up to grade 6 to grade 9, and then our high school, which is grade 10 through 12. We're unique. We've always been an international school. We're 56 years old, and we are the only 3-program International Baccalaureate school in France, in Paris. We've been accredited with the IB for almost 40 years now. Graduated our first IB diploma class in 1985. So we're very much so dedicated. Our mission is towards international education here in France through global mobility, welcoming both local and international families, and promoting a multilinguistic education that exists through the IB program. We're about 750 students total, 60 nationalities, almost as many mother tongues. It's very much so an environment where people come to share their different perspectives and their cultural differences and similarities. We do not have a boarding section, but we do welcome on occasion students that might be staying from abroad for the IB Diploma Programme under very particular circumstances with a family member or with a host family.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. And what's been fascinating getting to know you both briefly over the virtual airwaves here is that how friendly and enthusiastic you are. And you know, it's a great feeling of sharing knowledge and feeling that you've got a different aspect of the French piece and the French school. So there seems to be a lot of warmth out there and lots of information to support parents and employers making choices. So I think a good place to start is really, what is your personal story? Because I allude to this because I think you've both got fascinating stories, both as to how you got into education and your particular school, but also the history of the school as well. So can we start with you again then, Benjamin? You're head of the school, and what is it that makes you so passionate about the school and the education it delivers?
Well, my path towards education is closely linked to Hermitage. I was lucky enough to be born and raised in Paris and in Maison Lafitte, and to go to Hermitage as a student. My grandmother founded the school in 1941 during World War II, and through the years, grew the school from a very small French institution to a multilingual, multicultural, international school that now has its place within, the top schools in France. My father took over headship in the 80s and then retired in 2019, and I was honored to take over the helm in 2019, and this is my second year as head of School of Hermitage. I'm also a proud parent of a student at Hermitage, a 4-year-old who's in moyenne section, so in pre-K, and who loves going to school every day, and it's a privilege to see him develop his taste for schooling and for education right under my eyes. It's been quite a privilege. So yeah, education has always been part of my path, and I take great pride in my work every day, and it's always a double meaning because all the work I put in certainly goes to push the school further and further up the quality ladder and just make it a better place. But it's also very personally gratifying for me to take over and to continue the development. There's so much potential for education in France, for international families in France, and we and I love being part of that story. So it's been really exciting. We're obviously in very challenging times, and it's required a lot of dexterity and adaptation, and I'm sure Courtney will say that as well. But it's been timely. I've been able to come in with some fresh ideas, with some energy, and I hope that translates into some really great programs here at Hermitage. So that's a little bit about my story. Hermitage is a family school, more in the fact that we treat every student and every family as part of our own, and we really want to keep that going and give that sense of partnership and ownership to each person that comes to our campus.
Brilliant, thank you. So a real family feel about the school and going on potentially to another generation, which is very exciting. So Courtney, you've got a fascinating job at the International School in Paris as Engagement and Admissions Advancement Director. So tell us, how did you happen to come by that amazing role and be in Paris? I think you weren't originally going to be there for very long, is that right?
That's correct. So unlike Ben, I'm not a native of France. I grew up on the East Coast of the United States, and I came to Paris, as many people do, with a thought of spending a few months or maximum a year, immersing yourself in the culture, the language, the food. And those 2 suitcases became 12 years and 2 children and a puppy and a cat and a number of other things. I still can't cook the perfect chocolate souffle, but it's on my list. And through that time, I really wanted to go through a process of what it was I wanted my career to be as I adopted a new country and a new culture. And I got a very good piece of advice from someone quite close to me, which was to look into the educational sector, given that I'm quite passionate about learning and I've always tried to continue to learn myself and be a lifelong learner. There happens to be, an opening, was a bit serendipity in the admissions department back then, and I was able to join a really dynamic team whose sole objective was to accompany families in the search for the school that will be their settling down point here in France, or perhaps a change from one system to the next. And I think that mission of authentic development and finding a school mission is really incredibly empowering. I feel like our jobs on a day-to-day basis are very much so demystifying what is out there here in France in terms of the different types of schools, in terms of different locations, the different program offerings. I did not have the pleasure when I was growing up to do the International Baccalaureate. I did the U.S. state school system, but the IB, the students that I see every day, they are engaged learners, they are active learners, and they are effectuating change. And so it's quite inspiring to see, fifth graders tackling climate change, to see ninth graders tackling, gender issues and social justice, and our graduating class to then go all over the world and bring with them this agency and this empowerment to build a better world. So our school, motto is educating for complexity. It probably couldn't be more apropos than right now, but I think that we're just really about providing this platform for our students and our parents and our faculty to continue to learn, to continue to take action and question what's going on around us, and to make the world a better place.
Brilliant, thank you. So both very passionate about your schools and your interest in education. So now let's get over onto the tricky bit, because I know, based in the UK and a parent myself, and I know people are really concerned about curriculum, and when it comes to France, they think, oh goodness, don't understand it. And so I think this is a great opportunity for you to demystify the curriculums you have on offer and the great advantages there are for the curriculum. Now, let's start with you again, Benjamin, and take it slowly. But there will be the opportunity for, there's an excellent little video piece from Joanne Mitchell, which sort of runs through the points of the French curriculum. But let's hear from you, Benjamin, and what the school has to offer in terms of curricula.
Sure. I will take it slowly because it can get a little bit technical. But Hermitage offers two programs. We offer the IB, just like ISB, for the middle years program, which is the middle school, and the Diploma Programme, which is the DP, which is the last 2 years of high school, which leads to getting certification with a diploma and access to universities. So about 200 of our students are in the IB track and come from around the world. We have over 50 nationalities just in those 200 students alone. We have about 25% of those students who are boarders, and the rest are local. And it's a curriculum, and I think Courtney will add to this in a little bit, that allows students to choose a certain amount of their options and their paths, and to specialize in certain subjects. It's got a very strong core of subjects, theory of knowledge, which is a type of philosophy course, CAS, which is creativity, action, and service, which really puts the accent on all of the extracurricular and service-oriented activities that the school can provide, and the extended essay, which is a 2-year independent research paper that is required of each student who does the diploma, and that tends to be seen as a university level paper, and gives them a really good experience in researching and creating research question and really structuring their work independently. The MYP is similar. It's very it really gives students the ability to lead their learning and to really take charge and take independence in their learning. These are skills that are extremely important for the future and to build students' confidence, students' abilities to work in a complex world. And those are our two programs. So that's the International Baccalaureate, which is it comes out of Geneva. It's an independent private institution. There are hundreds of thousands of DP and MYP students in the world, and all take the same exams in May and in November, depending on the hemisphere they're in. And we'll talk a little bit later, I think, about university destinations and what kind of doors the diploma program opens. The other program that Hermitage offers is the French Baccalaureate, and that is the state's approved program, the French government approved program that, and we take that from kindergarten all the way to Terminale, which is the last year of French high school, with a set of exams. The particular strength of Hermitage is that we blend in and we add in a lot of English, even to the French track. So students who come to us in the French track aren't just Franco-French students. They're typically French families who've come back from abroad, from London, from the UK, who want to get back into the French system, who like this French system because it's a very rigorous academic system that does lead to a number of fantastic university options. But we also really put a very strong emphasis on getting our students to be bilingual, not just Francophone with a little bit of English, but really bilingual, where they can take their French baccalaureate and go abroad and really be comfortable wherever they move. So, for example, a French baccalaureate student will have up to 6 or 7 hours of English in his weekly schedule. Which is a considerable amount, and which is hard to find in other French schools. And we are very proud at the level of English that our students have, and the number of students who, after several years with us, leave Hermitage fully bilingual. We do the French baccalaureate with an English option, so they also leave Hermitage with that extra cap, which is not just the French baccalaureate, but the French baccalaureate with an English option. So those are the two programs. I hope that was slow enough and clear enough. And I think Courtney will be able to say more about the IB.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Excellent summary. So Courtney, would you like to build on the explanation about the IB and what your school offers?
Well, sure, and thanks, Ben, because I think you gave a really good background. I would say as well, the IB, was developed in the late 1960s. As Ben said, it is a not-for-profit based out of Geneva, which really has for an objective not just to support the specificity of the student learning model and the curriculum that it offers, but really was developed to facilitate geographic and cultural mobility because it's really about exchanging on a higher level through different cultures and perspectives, et cetera, and about embracing change and student agency. So it really is a program that is especially befitting for families that are globally mobile, that might find themselves in the UK for a certain period of time, might be coming back to France. There are about 5,500, maybe even more IB schools in the world. Some are state, some are private. So it's really now a global curriculum that's offered everywhere. I would say that the particularity of ISP, as I mentioned earlier, is the fact that for almost 4 decades, we've been doing the IB. Why is that? Because quite simply, we think that it's the program that's the most adapted to student learning and to engaging the students in this level to be able to give back immediately to the community and to be actors in the future roles they will have, both within society and with their own professional and personal lives. So here you have at the heart of the program, really student inquiry, asking questions and learning about concepts. This is a little bit the antithesis of kind of that rote method of learning of simply memorizing for memorizing's sake. It's much more about the student engaging in a process of inquiry, of reflection, and then taking what they've learned and then acting on that. So it's about creating change possibilities and looking at subject matters as how they interrelate to each other and looking at concepts and how they relate to each other and how that relates to the world of today. So quite a lot of the curriculum will also be based upon current events, and changes that we're seeing right now. And it's about a balance between the creative, between the scientific, between the linguistic side. And so there's a heavy emphasis, and I thank Ben for mentioning a lot about the importance of languages in both of our schools, because I think this is a big question that people have when they're thinking about what type of program they might want to join, and that multilingualism is a huge element in the world we live in today. So in an IB program, you'll study at least 2 languages. About half of our student body will graduate with a bilingual IB diploma, but you do have this emphasis on not just new language learning, but also retaining mother tongues, and at the same time working on multilingualism as a facet of communication and how that helps us from an identifying perspective, one and the same. So hopefully it's a little bit of some additional aspects to what the IB might offer to students here.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for those summaries. And now we're going to hear from Joanna Mitchell of Lumos Education, who is going to tell us a bit about the options for a French education in the UK and her experiences of supporting families who would like a French education or a bilingual, multilingual education. So here's this video, and then we'll have a little chat to see if the two of you agree with the things she was highlighting. Hello, Joanna. Lovely to see you here today. Perhaps you can start by telling us briefly what your education consultancy is all about and your own particular experience.
Thank you, Fiona, for inviting me. I run Lumos Education in central London, and we help both London and international families relocating all over the world. So our aim really is to find education solutions for those families. We have consultants who speak 6 languages and are fully conversant in all global education systems.
Brilliant. And I know you are particularly fond of French and the French language. Can you just explain your background there?
Yes, I'm very interested in France and the French language and studied at the Sorbonne for several years. And we work with a lot of French families and Francophone families, both here in London and internationally.
Great. So you're going to be able to demystify some of these things for our audience. So firstly then, how transferable is the French curriculum? Because we hear all the time that it really is an excellently transferable system. So let's understand it. Please, over to you.
Thank you, Fiona. So the French curriculum is very, very transferable. It's regulated by the French government. So in that sense, all French schools that are regulated by the French government across the world follow exactly the same curriculum. They are inspected by l'Agence d'enseignement français à l'étranger, AEFE, and that body decides whether or not a French school is what they call homologué. If the French school is homologué, they are qualified to teach the French education system, and that system, as I said previously, is recognized globally. So a family, be they Francophone, be they French nationality, or be they British or another nationality, following the French education system can transfer globally without any problems at all.
And that's pretty quickly when they arrive in a new country.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And what we find is that the French schools are very good at communicating with each other. So we have, had families relocating from Azerbaijan, New York, Canada, and they will speak with one another, check exactly where the child is in that curriculum and liaise so that the relocation between the French schools globally is very smooth and easy for the family.
Brilliant, thank you. So can you talk a little about the French schools in the UK and what the options are?
So we have some very good French schools in the UK. Some of those are homologués by l'Agence d'enseignement français à l'étranger. And the most famous one is the Lycée Français Charles de Gaulle in South Kensington. That is a big lycée with several thousand students, and it also has 4 primary schools that feed into it. École de Wix, Marie d'Oliec, École André Malraux, and the South Kensington Primary School, which is actually on the lycée site. That school is also funded directly by the French government. So the fees are quite low. Mm-hmm. There are other French schools in London, for example, the Lycée Winston Churchill, which isn't funded directly by the French government, but is also homologué. so children can transfer from that school to any French school abroad. There are some schools which aren't homologués, so certified by the French government, and they teach a slightly different version of the French education system, sometimes combined with aspects of the British system or other systems. So they're slightly different in their approach.
Great. And from very young children as well, I think, isn't it?
Yes, some from 2-3 years old. It depends on the school. So, for example, IFA, which is based in Marylebone, takes children, I think, from 2 years old in the nursery. And that's a very nice little French school in central London.
And are there any other areas in the UK that you've dealt with?
Well, there is in Bristol, Clifton High School, which was teaching French at one point. I'm not sure whether it still is, but there were a lot of French families in Bristol who sent their children to that school.
Great. And of course, international schools in the UK and around the world will obviously help and support native language French.
Absolutely. The international schools will support native language French speakers. Most of those will teach the International Baccalaureate, which is different from the French Bac, which is taught in the French schools. And that's the important differentiation to make. So if you're a French Francophone or family wanting the French education system, you will sit normally the French Baccalaureate in a French school. If you're transferring to an international school, for example, in Brussels, you will most probably do the International Baccalaureate, which is not the same as the French Bac. There are slight differences.
Thank you for clarifying. So which countries outside the UK do you work with for clients requiring French schools?
Many countries outside the UK we work with for clients requiring French schools. And I'll give a few examples, but most countries will have a French lycée. Most significant countries will have a French lycée. So we work with the French lycée in New York, which does the French education system, but they also offer the high school diploma. So for perhaps a family with an American father and a French mother, it's the best of both worlds. We work with the French lycée in Toronto, and they offer the French Bac as well. And we also work with the Lycée de Baku in Azerbaijan. And they offer, absolutely, the French system, which, liaises with all the other French schools globally. So wherever you are in the world, you're very close to a French school.
And then Switzerland.
Yeah. So Switzerland, there are French schools, but there are, of course, schools that follow the Swiss education system. We work with a lot of the boarding schools in Switzerland, such as there are very many.
Yeah.
It's difficult to name just one, but they will follow lots of, a combination of different education systems. But most Swiss people will attend a state Swiss school, not a private Swiss school, and that will follow the Swiss education system, which is different to the French.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much. That's been really beautifully clear, and I'm sure it will encourage a lot of parents to look for a French curriculum school. Thank you.
An absolute pleasure, Fiona. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So hopefully everyone's picked up the tips on the French education system and the IB curriculum as well. So what springs to mind, having heard Joanna, perhaps common things that parents have commented on or found confusing? Anything you want to pick up, Courtney?
Sure. I mean, I think what Joanna said quite eloquently is that you really are supporting a transition for a family. And part of supporting a transition is helping to accompany those families to understanding what they are looking for. So some of the differences that she mentioned between the French system and the IB system, in moments of stress when people are thinking about changing countries and where they might be, it can be quite difficult to know all the questions to ask. So one of the areas that I think that both Ben and myself are quite passionate about is helping to provide that toolkit for families to ask those questions, to be thinking about their personal circumstances, their linguistic profile, where their children might want to go for higher education, what they're looking for in terms of an environment for themselves as parents. So I think that that's incredibly important to help each family find their right footing and to be advocating for our schools, of course, but at the same time, the point is to be focused on the family's needs.
Brilliant, thank you. And Benjamin, what sprang to mind having heard Joanna's comments?
I would echo what Courtney said, is that our role is to really guide the families to the right spots and the right schools, and then the right tracks for the future, because education is an investment in your child's future, and just like any investment, you really want to plan ahead, look further down, and see what it'll bring. I certainly agree with everything that's been said about transferability. The French baccalaureate and the French system has really strong roots around the world, and we certainly have transfers from every major country out there that has a French lycée or French middle school or French primary school, actually, because there are a number out there, and those transfers really are helped by the fact that the system is cohesive, and it's the same program wherever you go. So transitions are really smooth in that sense. You have to also be aware that obviously it's in French, so your level of French has to be at a native almost level as you get closer to the lycée. Obviously, when you're in primary school or middle school, collège, you have time to build those skills, but you have to keep in mind that you're working towards a French baccalaureate, and there's certainly at Hermitage, there's a lot of English that goes into the program, but you also have to be able to pass the exams in French. The other key element for families to take in consideration is that the French program is not one that you can really dip in and out of, especially as you get closer to high school. You have to, when you get to middle school, and end of middle school, most importantly, you really have to commit. You can't just do a year, then go to a different system, and then come back and do another year, just because the French are really looking to build on skills that are years in the making. It's not just, all right, this year we're going to do this, and then we wrap it up. They're really trying to build a student. And it's also, as it's been recognized internationally, the French baccalaureate is a difficult baccalaureate to get. It's academically demanding, and the students who do well in it really need to put in the time and effort to succeed. I would say a lot of those things are applicable to the IB as well, but until you get to closer to the IB DP in the last 2 years, I think you have a little bit more flexibility in the MYP to dip in and out, because the MYP kind of prepares you to face, prepares you in a more independent way of learning, and allows you to then take those skills and apply them. We've had students from the MYP go to our middle school, and students from our middle school come to the MYP, which is also one of the strengths at Hermitage, is that we have both tracks that allow students to kind of right until high school to decide what fits best for them. But the MYP, and I think Courtney will maybe confirm this, allows you to not just jump from one MYP school to another around the world, because there are MYP schools all over the world, but also the MYP, you can go from the MYP to an IGCSE, from the MYP to an A-level, from MYP to French Baccalaureate. I think the MYP is, and obviously you can also do that with the French Baccalaureate middle school, but keeping in mind that that's going to be predominantly in French, so the transition won't be as seamless.
Great, thank you. Well, now might be a convenient time just to talk a bit about higher education, because we've talked about the curriculums. So Courtney, just give us an overview really of where your pupils may go for higher education, the sort of split with different nationalities, and what types of universities and other courses they attend.
Sure. So just in general, I would say the IB, and Ben mentioned a bit earlier, the International Baccalaureate really is considered a gold standard in terms of university admissions process. The IB Diploma Programme requires 6 subject areas of study. In addition, it requires a theory of knowledge and an extended essay. So you really are doing university level research and university level exams before even going to university. So it's quite appreciated, and the scoring system is such that it's very transparent for the university process to be able to understand what the overall score is from a pass all the way up to a perfect score of 45. So really taking an IB by definition opens the doors to universities all over the world. At a school like ISP, we're very blessed to have such diversity of students and where they're coming from, and that follows all the way through to where they go next. And as such, we have a university counseling department that has to have their feet in quite a few different systems to be able to accompany that part of the students as they leave to move on to their next home. So we have students that will go to English-speaking curriculums for higher education, be that in the UK, in Canada, in the United States, in the Netherlands, even programs that are now business programs where they're in France. We also have students that might return to their home country. So we have specific university counselors that deal with the systems, for example, in Korea and Japan. They might want to go back and do study medicine in Germany or things like this. And we have students that will choose to stay in France. So those might be French students that want to join the French system of higher education. Those might be students that have fallen in love, as I did, with the city and don't want to go. And so they might join programs as well that could be dual programs where there's a bit of a sharing between schools in France and abroad. Those could be business programs. So we don't have our schools not set up to kind of shuttle people into one specific country or one specific curriculum. The IB turns out as many engineers and doctors as it does architects and artists and people that work in NGOs and whatnot. So it's really facilitating and supporting the students on their path of discovery. This type of conceptual learning it accompanies them as they move on into higher education and into discovering what it is they might want to do. But in general, you'll see our students, I would say probably the largest percentage up until now has been into the UK, but that won't be a majority. We'll see with Brexit whether or not that will dip a little bit. But we'll have students going to top universities and top programs that might be design programs, etc., around the world.
Brilliant. Good. Thank you. Benjamin, would you like to make a comment about where your students go and around the world? Or
yeah, absolutely. I think there are very close parallels and similarities between our schools and the destinations, university destinations that our students go to. Obviously, with the two programs, there are slight differences, just in that the French baccalaureate students have a tendency to stay in France. And they have a tendency to go to top schools in France regularly, and we have quite a good funnel of students going to the top engineering schools, the top business schools, etc. in France, and then our IB students also go to top international top universities in the UK, Canada, US, Netherlands, I think what the great difference that an institution like Hermitage or ISP can have on a student is really how well they do at university when they get there. We, I think, are really confident in our students' abilities to adapt and to make, right from the first day of university, an impact on their studies and on their future. So that's an advantage of being in an international school setting in your secondary path. Just being able to switch to university, whether it's in London or in Montreal or in The Hague or in Paris, and being impactful and being solid in your values and your ability to be educated by different systems. We also have a university counselor that follows our students and really helps them make the right choices. And I think I would say that when looking at a school anywhere, not just in France, it's really to see where the school can take you and how the school will kind of hold each family's hand to find the right direction, and especially in university choices, because that's that's such an important part of the process. We tend to say we're just a school, we're just a high school. You know, we're here, we're a bridge to further and better things. So we're an important bridge, but we're a bridge. So it's you know, we're part of the puzzle.
Brilliant. Now, talking about the bridge, that takes us really neatly into the next area to cover. So the response to COVID-19 and how you were able to deal with that at both your schools and what you've learned from it. So Benjamin, let's go back to you again and just tell us a bit about the background and how quickly you managed to support your parents and your students.
Well, as people now know, France was hit with its first wave in March of 2020, and we were the school closures were announced on Thursday night for Monday morning. So we had very little time to put things in place, and yet we did this very seamlessly. We had prepped our teams because we had kind of seen what the situation had been like in Italy, and we both in the international section and in the French section were able to right on Monday morning at 8:30 have our first classes online. So we did a whole structured, continuous education online throughout the 2 months or almost more of physical closure, and we're able to continue to push our students academically and also support them emotionally in big parts of this journey. So it was certainly difficult. It taught us a lot. It was a huge undertaking that allowed us to really put things in perspective in terms of how our lessons were held, you know, and also relations between teachers and students, and really a great exercise in seeing what the future held in terms of technology in the classroom. We're now, since September, since the rentrée, back fully. We haven't closed a single day since. We are, the country is in confinement, but has retained the schools open, which is really a great thing for us. The students are all back. Most of them are wearing, all of them except our younger ones are wearing masks because it's mandatory from 6-year-olds and upwards. But the rest of the school operates normally. We've put in a lot of things in place to keep things to follow all the governmental protocols, and we've had no outbreaks. We've had a few isolated cases that are all linked to outside social activities by families and students, and we've been really proud of all the work that our teams have put in place to keep the school running and to keep our kids in the classrooms, because at the end of the day, you know, online classes are fun for a little bit, but we really see the need for students to be together, to socialize, because school is not just about, you know, your textbooks and learning. It's also about learning to be together, learning to make friends, learning those social cues that are so hard to make happen through video, even though we're connecting quite well on this one. And even in our boarding houses, we've had no outbreaks in our boarding houses. We've put, you know, strict protocols in place, but we've been able to keep activities going. We've had some fun evenings and some fun things going. We've kept the yoga, the Pilates. We've put in a lot of things in place to make up for the fact that students aren't allowed off campus as much as they used to because of confinement. So we have cooking classes, we have sewing classes, we have CrossFit. We're really putting a lot of things in place to keep the momentum, the energy, and the excitement about being at school.
Great, thank you very much. So Courtney, your experience, and I think you had a little bit of a stroke of luck in your preparation, which was due to planning, and were able to be very versatile and agile.
Yes, as Ben said, even from January, seeing what was going on in the world, leaderships we were starting to do scenario testing, etc. And given our global population, even the February holiday break, we actually already had in place a type of modified home learning for people that might have been coming back from our February break from places that at that time were deemed to be places that required quarantining upon arrival in France. We set our school calendar a year ahead of time, and so it was fortuitous that our professional development day for our entire staff happened to be Friday, March 13th. So we had a whole day planned. We had some outside speakers coming in, and on a turn of a dime, as Ben mentioned, that week you could kind of see it coming on Monday, Tuesday, and then the announcement on Thursday. So from one day to the next, we just completely altered that professional development day to really be about supporting the teaching and learning staff with the tools we'd already introduced. So with how to use Zoom, best practices, questions about GDPR and safety and child safeguarding. So that became a day of really prepping for being able to roll it out on Monday. So like Ben, we had everything up and going. But most importantly, I think for us, the confinement period was a period of continual conversation with our community. We have a research center at the school, and so we ran surveys every week for both the parents and the students, and had town hall meetings. And it was about looking at the program and being honest and iterative with making changes when changes needed to be made. I think, you can put many things in place with best intentions, but it's important to see what the results of those are. So we learned that in some cases, less screen time was more screen time. For our youngest learners, how could we help? Many of us were in that situation of becoming overnight co-teachers and co-parents and co-workers. So how can we help the social and emotional well-being of the families as well as the students? So that was an incredible learning opportunity from all of us. And I think it is really authentic, the sharing that we were able to do through those town hall meetings and learning how much of a good thing technology can be and when it needs to be scaled back to make sure that it's not overtaking the purpose as well. Similarly to Hermitage, we've been fully open since after the confinement period that extended into the beginning of the school year. And I think that transparency with our community has been a huge point of effort for us so that people understand the rationale for the protocols, that we're in this together. We make changes where changes need to be made. Some of those are, changes that are required by the government. Some of those are changes that we impose, self-impose, so that we can make sure that we're offering the safest environment for learning possible. But clearly, we want to privilege in-person learning. There is an incredible ecosystem that our schools and our faculty create. And I think that when we were all able to come back and see each other after that long period of being apart, you realize that there are great advantages to technology, but it's not exactly the same thing. So we were quite happy to have a positive farewelling experience. I think around the world it wasn't always the same, and that is a huge missed opportunity, especially considering that many of our schools have families that will be moving on to different countries at the end of the school year. So that was incredibly important to us, and we're very grateful we were able to do that.
Great, thank you very much. So does anything occur to either of you? We talked a bit about technology and innovation, but were there any positives or acceleration of things that you were going to do anyway that the COVID response to COVID brought out in the school?
Sure, I'll jump in there. I think technology creates, it breaks down time and space. So I think what it permitted was for people to expand a little bit how they were sharing their learning. What has been interesting to see is how the students have adopted the technology in their own way, and how they have created different types of webinars and different types of groups that are designed to now even implicate the parents. We have a student who created a series of career talks with parent speakers already this year because they know about Zoom and how to use the technology, and because it no longer seems complicated. You don't have to run out of room. You don't have to reserve this or that. So I think it has broken down some of those barriers and allowed us to share more widely the learning that goes on in the classroom. in a different way. So I think in that respect, it's been really helpful to be able to be innovative through these means.
Great. Anything you want to highlight, Ben?
No, I think for us, it's it put things in perspective and allowed us to, when I say us, it's the whole community. It allowed us to recognize the importance of being together, and also the importance of not relying too much on technology. That technology is certainly a fantastic tool and allowed us to, in a pinch, react to the situation that didn't have an alternative. But that we were very happy to return to campus, and that the energy that a school needs to succeed is not just through the integration of technology, obviously, but through just kids playing in the courtyard and feeding off of that, which is one of the things that I love seeing and hearing when I'm in my office. I have a courtyard right there. I hope it hasn't been too loud for you, but it was something that in March, April, May of last year was really difficult for us to navigate as educators. Just the fact that yes, education was going on, yes, learning was at the forefront, but we missed having students on campus breathing that energy into our lungs. So we're thrilled to have that back, and also it highlighted the importance of teamwork. We, as Courtney said, we felt each and every staff member felt that we were working towards protecting our community and continuing the education of each child, and it really personalized every single Zoom call was a team effort, from the IT to the teacher to the coordinators to everything really relied on everyone cooperating and communicating. So that made it a worthwhile kind of opportunity to just realize that communication is key.
Brilliant. And it's so wonderful. I quite agree with you. Hearing children laughing and chattering in the playground is just uplifts the spirits. So let's go on to more uplifting things. Who wouldn't want to experience French culture and living in France? For you, I think let's hear the insider's view. So Courtney, you obviously were well persuaded that France is the place to be. So can you share some of the benefits of educating children and living and working in France and Paris in particular, and also the wider heritage and culture that you can absorb for life?
Absolutely. I mean, it's not for nothing that Paris is the most visited city in the world. I think it has a special place, both historically and culturally, and is magical. For many, many people, you can find many quotes from great writers about what it means to walk the streets of Paris and to feel a part of the culture and the history here. In our school community, we have a special link to the city. Not only are we, right there on the streets of the 16th arrondissement, but we do have a flagship program, which is Paris as a Classroom. And as we are in the city, a big part of coming to ISP means coming through the streets and being part of the dynamism that is Paris. And how can we give those opportunities to students on a daily basis, whether it's taking an immersion language class to the bakery so that they can order their first baguettes when they speak, no French upon arrival, or whether it's, going to see a Banksy exhibit and to explore what it means to have, the themes of interculturalism in graffiti on the wall. There's no shortage of opportunities from museums to outdoor installations to sharing with other educational programs here in the city and right outside. So I think that it certainly is a place where you're autonomous in Paris. When you're an expat here or a local, you breathe the life. You're not separated from what is the rest of the city. So I think it's a city. Someone once described it to me as an onion, and I think it's a good analogy. That there's a lot of layers. You kind of sometimes got to cry through a couple of them, but globally speaking, it's a really fantastic experience. And the longer you're here, the more those layers reveal themselves to you. And there's a fantastic support for families and outdoor activities. And I think that's been one of the harder things during, this pandemic year is you do lose a lot of those things you take for granted that you just get walking down the street or by walking into a bakery or a museum or a theater. And so I think everyone will be really quite happy when everything is open again, and we can take full advantage of them.
Lovely. I can almost smell the croissant.
Exactly. Lots of better chocolate.
As long as it's not the onion.
It's like not the onions.
Ben, your experience, yes.
Well, despite my accent, I'm French and I was born and raised here. So but it's the first time I've heard of Paris as the Onion City. Given that, I have to agree in that when you do peel the layers, the tourism and the flashy layers to Paris and France, you get to something that's very important to not just the French, but people who want to experience France. It's this intrinsic ability to think critically. The French, and it's based in their education system. It's based in their philosophy with their philosophers throughout the ages. This desire to think critically and to look at problems in different ways and to question the other person, generally respectfully, but sometimes with a little bit of a protest here and there. But it's always for the good of the community, and it's always to look at things critically and to question the status quo, which I think is really important and leads us to doing the same thing in our schools and to push students to think critically when they set out in Paris. They're just not just passive observers. They have to be actors of their time here. Hermitage is at its origin a French school, and we're in a small green town, a very green town of Maison Lafitte, and we're very close to Paris. We're 15 kilometers away, as I said, but we have this wonderful opportunity of having an international community, but really rooted in French culture and with a strong French identity that we certainly don't want to shed. We want our international students to come here and to feel like they haven't disconnected from their host country. I was going to say host family, but to really feel like they're in France, and yes, they have the support of an international and global community in Hermitage, but they're very much part of this critical thinking environment that I like to see in our environments. Maison Lafitte is a little bit different than Paris. We're a smallish town of tens of thousands of people, but we're also, while being, a few stops from Paris on the train line, we have a lot of horseback riding, a lot of cycling, great running trails. We have a golf course, tennis right near us, and all of our students really take advantage of that. And not just our students, our families who relocate to us, because a lot of our families relocate to Maison Lafitte for Hermitage and take advantage of this very cute and quaint French lifestyle with the bakeries right there, and we have a wine cave in our town that has a spectacular selection. So it really gives our families this experience of being in a safe and very French environment, while also we're just a few stops away from the main financial district at Défense. We're on the same train line. So we have really best of both worlds and are able to offer that to our families. But yes, French culture is like, Paris is like an onion. And Maison Lafitte, I'll say it a little more delicately, is like a croissant. It has its folds, and it's worth every calorie.
Thank you. So our time is nearly running out. Thank you so much for this whistle-stop tour around Paris, France. And so let's end on a positive note. And what is your vision for the school and for yourself, Courtney, as aspirational as you like?
I'll go all the way. I think for us, it's continuing the path that's already been set in the school. Educating for complexity. It's taking that to the next step. It's supporting the student-led research, it's supporting the student agency, and it's really providing them. And I think this is a very specific time period where we need to give children the knowledge that they are the change makers, that they are the ones that are going to support the growth and the intercultural sharing that will come and that will overcome, in many cases, some of the difficulties that we've seen on a global political scale. So I would say it's really just continuing to support that and to growing that mission as it exists in our school, but also with our, sister and schools and international education around the world. I think on a personal note, I'm going to still work for that chocolate souffle. Maybe I'll get there. Those that know me know I'm very challenged in the kitchen, so maybe that's where the analogy of the onion should stay. But we'll go for the chocolate souffle at some point. Maybe 12 more years here will help me with that.
Love to pop across and try. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Benjamin, what about you?
Well, Hermitage is in a phase of expansion and development. So we're really putting a lot of resources into developing our offerings, developing our campus, and really pushing what we can offer families. We, want to continue having excellent results and being able to guide families and students through their education, and just firm up that we're an exceptional destination for international relocating families, and despite a pandemic and the difficult times that the world is seeing, we're a bit of a safe haven, and I think ISP a little bit too, but we feel like our families are safe here, and comforted by that, and able to see themselves build a future that is really positive and will amount to great things for their kids. And as a personal goal, it's not so much a goal. I just want to continue giving my all for this school that has been part of my family for many years, and I have a 2-year-old who will be starting next year, so that's really part of the excitement for me is continuing that path and offering them the best, because they're Hermitage students too. So it's been a wonderful journey, and I want to keep that going.
Brilliant. Well, thank you both for some wonderful conversation, and we wish your schools well, and thank you for supporting them so well through this difficult time. Thank you for joining us today. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
And so we've been talking today to Benjamin Hunter, Head of School, Hermitage International School of France, and of course Courtney Knight, Advancement and Engagement Director of the International School of Paris. And we were also joined by Joanne Mitchell of Loomis Education. So you can catch up with their details in the slides and the replay. So here's a brief summary of the school if you would like to get in touch, of Hermitage and the International School of Paris. So on with the rest of the International Education and School Fair this week. This afternoon, we've got Crossroads, an International School of London transition programme, which is showcasing what transition is all about. Whether you're a parent, an employer, or a school yourself, you're bound to learn lots from this spotlight. And then we have a school from Vietnam on what to look for in a truly international school. And then on Friday, exploring different curricula and higher education option before a finale for the end of the fair in the afternoon. So thank you again for joining us, everyone. There are lots of resources on our website at relocateglobal.com. The schools are there. You can enjoy their international videos and virtual tours and lots of editorial about them. So look at those at your leisure. We have the International Education and Schools Guides and lots of editorial as well. So thank you very much, and we look forward to joining you again soon. Goodbye.